Hi, Liza. All right, so thank you for asking to help you with your essay. It really is the best part of this class. So I'm going to read through it a bit, and the first thing I'll do is look at the format. Obviously, when you submit this, you want to make sure it's MLA format, and that goes with your name, and then the teacher's name, the class that you're in, and the date it's due. You can keep the title, and then you double space everything. You don't need any of these subheaders, introduction, background, grounds, support warrants. So don't, that's not really necessary for this essay. You can use that format, that's fine, but just don't put those subheadings. Um, and then when you do the works cited page, it will be alphabetical. So you'll do the last name when there's an author, and then alphabetical. So it looks like that's off a little bit here. And the other thing I'm going to check is when I click on the links, I do want them to make sure that they work. Okay. And then I'll take a look just to make sure that they match. All right. And then as you have these, 4 articles in your works cited, and that's WORKS, plural. I should see the last name or the title in the essay itself, so I can see, and when you put the in parentheses here, you don't need the entire title. And you can even actually shorten it as long as I know. So violent video games, you can just shorten it to violent video games. Okay, you don't need the whole. Anderson is fine there. So I see the 2 of them. And something else too, since you've already done Anderson et al. Here in parentheses, you don't need to put all of the authors. You can say the problem of violent video games came to be in the 1990s. In the article, and you could just say in the article, violent, and then you put the article and title in quotation marks. I mean, violent video games background overview, end quotes. The authors say that violent video games came to be in the 1990s. And then you have a semicolon or a colon here, which I'm not sure why you do that. You probably just want to put a period and then begin the quote. Although video games emerged in the 1970s, it wasn't until the 1990s that extremely violent video games came of age. Okay, and then you gave credit there. So you don't need all of the authors twice. I would just kind of get rid of the authors, leave it in parentheses with Anderson et al., and then do that. And you may want to talk a little about that. That's kind of a bit short. It's not a bad art. It's not a bad reference or evidence, but it's not being used very effectively or very thoroughly. So I would maybe add a little bit more of a commentary about why that's a big deal. I mean, you do say this is a long time for a problem to be alive, and you don't need that comment and no solution for it. And I'd probably make a little bit more of an argument about that, you could say something, it's only been getting worse. Video games have not gotten less violent, they've gotten more violent. So, something like that, right, to kind of emphasize your point. A couple other things too. I don't see pro-con violent video games mentioned in here, so you want to make sure that's specifically pointed out. And then this last one here, Al-Assad, and I'm not sure, I guess the title is Impact of Action Video Game. That should be in quotes if that's the title. The journal is italicized, which you've done, that's good, but you need to have that title in quotes, and then it also needs to be mentioned somewhere in your essay. Otherwise, it won't count as a resource. Oh, actually, I see it. It's right here, pro-con violent video games. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this introduction. Have you ever met someone who is a bully or really aggressive? Perhaps that same person has trouble focusing. I wouldn't ask the second question here, did you consider that person might be involved in a video game? You could just make the point, consider that, and then I'd probably provide a statistic. How many, children nowadays play violent video games? I'm sure you could find pretty easily some facts about that. And that would help bolster your point that you're trying to say that violent video games are, causing some challenges. So rather than ask that second rhetorical question, because that to me is kind of a waste of time, just add a fact there. To just say, consider that, 75% of youth today play violent video games at least once a week, or something like that. Find a legitimate source, don't just make a guess, and, because that will add some power to your argument. I would get rid of the statement, I am discussing the problem of violent video games. That's obvious, especially with the title. And then I wouldn't say I will establish my ethos in this paper by considering counterarguments. What you need right here at the end of the introduction is your thesis statement. What is it? What are you trying to prove? Okay, and be bold. Don't be afraid to make a pretty bold statement. Don't over exaggerate it, but make a pretty strong, opinionated argument. That's what research papers do and argumentative essays do. You really need to advance this thought about violent video games and the impact. Okay, and that's where the research comes in, because that builds up your credibility and so forth. So there are many downsides to playing violent video games, especially when not done under moderation. According to the article on the website Britannica, some of these problems include aggression and so forth. You're probably thinking, these problems should be alone and stop it. If I'm guessing this is just a question you're asking, but you capitalize these. I agree, however, it doesn't stop there. Indiana University did a study violent video games and made the claim that, sustains changes in the region of the brain associated. 1 week of playing violent video games causes negative changes in the brain. Okay. Again, I'd shorten that. That's a pretty good paragraph there. You're doing a good job, I think, making some points and showing some evidence. Okay. That seems okay. Now, as I go through this, I highly recommend you also reread it out loud to yourself. See where you can see things that are smooth and doing well, and then see where things are kind of rough and not clear or coherent, and you can work and fix on those, or fix those. Okay, this, you may want to add a little bit more to, I disagree with what they're marketing. Add another sentence why you disagree with it, what's wrong with what you're seeing, okay? And again, with the strong thesis statement up here, that'll help strengthen all of the other arguments too, because they all should lead to that thesis statement. Okay, the counter argument and rebuttal, I think it's interesting. I think that's a fair counter argument. A lot of people will say that. And I think you do a good job responding to what the counter argument would be. That's okay. The conclusion should be developed a little bit more. So this is a solid start, Eliza. I think you're definitely on the right track. You're thinking about everything, and you're working to get some evidence to back it up. So that's good. Just make sure you're following the Emily format and getting rid of the subheadings and having a strong thesis. Just trying to kind of bolster everything that you're doing. Okay, and again, I'm happy. I really am happy to look at essays. It gives me a chance to kind of teach a little bit individually, rather than just kind of like this blanket. This is what you should be doing in general. So I definitely prefer looking at individual essays. So, okay, all right, good luck, and again, I'm happy to look at the next version if you want.